Likely composed between 750 and 650 BC, the Odyssey is an epic poem about the adventures of the Greek hero Odysseus, following his victory in the Trojan War. A sequel to the Iliad, the Odyssey remains one of the most influential works in Western literature, as its primary theme, the desire for home, has influenced countless modern narratives. Scholars have debated the story's authorship for years, though it is often attributed to a blind bard named Homer. Regardless, scholars generally agree that the poem was originally shared orally. 10 years after the fall of Troy, the Greek hero Odysseus has still not returned to his native Ithaca. Believing Odysseus to be dead, a band of rowdy suitors has overrun his palace, courting his faithful wife Penelope, despite her attempts to ward them off. Antinous, the suitors' manipulative leader, gives Odysseus' son Telemachus a choice. Either evict his mother, or force her to marry one of them. Telemachus rejects his offer, begging for aid from Zeus. With Zeus's blessing, the goddess Athena, Odysseus' greatest immortal ally, appears to Telemachus in disguise, urging the boy to seek news of his father at Pylos and Sparta. Telemachus sets sail, seeking out Odysseus' old comrades in arms for clues to his father's whereabouts. While he's away from Ithaca, the suitors conspire to ambush Telemachus upon his return. Little do they know, Odysseus is alive and well, trapped on the island of the beautiful goddess Calypso, who has kept him as her prisoner and lover for the last 8 years. Athena arranges for Odysseus' release from Calypso's island, sending Hermes to deliver the message. Odysseus embarks alone on a raft, but the sea god Poseidon, whose wrath Odysseus incurred earlier in his adventures, conjures up a storm that nearly drowns him. Odysseus manages to swim to shore, landing in the kingdom of the Phoenicians. Their princess Nausicaa is sympathetic to the handsome warrior and invites him to her palace. Alcinous, the Phaeacian king, takes pity on the stranger and vows to help him return home. Odysseus withholds his identity for as long as he can, before finally sharing the story of his adventures. Odysseus begins the story with his departure from Troy. First, Odysseus and his crew reach the island of the Lotus Eaters, a peaceful community that survives primarily on a native plant, the lotus. But the lotus, while sweet and sleep-inducing, causes those who eat it to forget their homes and lose all desire to leave the island. 3 of Odysseus' men eat the lotus and wish to stay, but Odysseus forces them back to the ship and sails off. Next, they reach the land of the Cyclopes, a race of lawless, one-eyed giants. While feasting on the plentiful goats there, Odysseus' men spot the Cyclops Polyphemus in a nearby field and hide in his cave. When Polyphemus notices them, Odysseus lies that their ship was wrecked. To their surprise, Polyphemus grabs 2 of Odysseus' men, beats them dead, and eats them. When Polyphemus asks for his name, Odysseus tells him he's called Nobody. Polyphemus expresses a desire to eat Odysseus next. Over the coming days, Polyphemus continues eating Odysseus' men, and Odysseus hatches a plan to defeat Polyphemus, fashioning a spike out of the Cyclops club. Odysseus plies Polyphemus with wine until he falls asleep, giving himself a chance to ram his spike into Polyphemus' eye, blinding him. Odysseus escapes with what's left of his crew, taunting the wounded Polyphemus that nobody blinded him as he sails away. Polyphemus prays to his father Poseidon to punish Odysseus. Next, Odysseus and his crew reach the island of the wind god Aeolus, who hosts them for a month before giving Odysseus a bag containing winds to help them reach home. After sailing for 10 days, Odysseus and his men spot Ithaca on the horizon. But Odysseus's crew opens the bag while he sleeps, allowing the winds to rush out, and the ship is blown back to Aeolus's island. Aeolus expresses his belief that Odysseus's journey is cursed by the gods and refuses to help him further. Odysseus and his crew sail on, narrowly escaping the giant Laestrygonians who eat one of Odysseus's envoys. They reach the island of the goddess Circe. Odysseus sends half of his crew to greet Circe, who fixes them a feast, and all but Eurylochus drink her potion, which turns the men into pigs. Eurylochus returns to alert Odysseus, who elects to investigate on his own. On the way, Hermes gives Odysseus a plant that will protect him from Circe's spell, and instructs him to sleep with Circe, breaking her spell over the crew. Odysseus obeys, and Circe turns his crew back into men. Circe's maids bathe and feed the men, who end up staying for a whole year before reminding Odysseus of his mission. Odysseus asks Circe to help them sail home, but she instructs him to visit Hades, the land of death, first. While there, Odysseus sees his dead mother, Anticlea, who tells him of Penelope and Telemachus' wish for him to return. Finally, Odysseus confers with the blind seer Tiresias, who instructs him to avoid the sun god Helios' cattle on his journey. Briefly, Odysseus and his men return to Circe, who warns them against listening to the sirens, mermaid-like creatures who sing to tempt men from their ships. Circe also warns them of Scylla, a six-headed sea monster that devours sailors, and the treacherous whirlpools of Charybdis. Odysseus sets sail, ordering his men to tie him to the mast when they pass the sirens so that he can hear their song. Odysseus chooses not to warn the crew of Scylla, who eats 6 of his men. Finally, Odysseus reaches the island of Helios. Exhausted and starving, Odysseus' men ignore their leader's advice not to eat the sun god's oxen, and Helios asks Zeus to punish them. Zeus complies, throwing a thunderbolt at Odysseus' ship to wreck it. Odysseus clings to a fragment of his vessel, narrowly avoiding Scylla, and drifting to Calypso's island, where we first met Odysseus.